The courage to be disliked there is a single fundamental source behind every challenge you encounter in life. It is your excessive concern about other people, its perceptions of you. This preoccupation with external judgment forms the foundation of your discontent. In this episode, we re-exploring The Courage to be Disliked, a collaborative work between Ichiro Kashimi, a Japanese philosopher and psychologist, and writer Fumitake Koga. The authors assert that anxiety always connects to something external. As they put it, worry cannot exist in isolation, defined solely by the individual. The concept of purely internal worry is a myth. Regardless of what concerns arise, other people's shadows are invariably present. Kashimi and Koga maintain that all life's difficulties have straightforward solutions. Life only appears complicated because we make it so. In their view, the essential ingredient for happiness is simply the courage to accept being disliked. They elaborate, one must not be afraid of others' disapproval. True freedom comes when you can be disliked by others. Your issue isn't a lack of ability. It is a shortage of courage. They further clarify that embracing happiness requires embracing the possibility of disapproval. Once you develop this courage, your relationships will immediately transform into something weightless. Throughout this episode, we delve into the book's central teachings, including understanding the psychology behind unhappiness, why chasing external validation leads nowhere, the author's guidance for living an authentically happy existence. Kashimi and Koga's philosophy centers on the belief that happiness is potentially accessible to everyone, regardless of their history. The key distinction between happy and unhappy individuals lies in their willingness to transform themselves. The book builds upon theories developed by psychologist Alfred Adler. Adler considered the self a cohesive entity. Our physical body, mental processes, emotional responses, and both conscious and subconscious thoughts all functioning collaboratively toward a common objective. From Adler's perspective, everything we think, do, or feel is oriented toward achieving that objective, even when we're not consciously aware of it. In Adler's framework, goals don't merely influence our happiness, they fundamentally shape our identity. This suggests that our chosen objectives drive our sense of self. Kashimi and Koga elaborate on this concept, explaining that Adler doesn't emphasize fixed personality characteristics but instead examines people through the lens of their lifestyle choices. In Adler's view, your lifestyle consists of the habits, emotions, and thoughts you've selected at a certain point in your life. You continue to maintain these patterns because you believe they are the most effective path toward achieving your goals. Take the concept of antisocial behavior, for instance. Kashimi and Koga don't believe truly antisocial individuals exist. Rather, they interpret antisocial conduct as a deliberate choice, a strategy for pursuing specific objectives. Kashimi and Koga extend this concept by proposing that our chosen goals not only direct our actions but also generate our emotional responses. You first determine what you desire, then manufacture the feelings that will assist you in obtaining it. Consider someone who wants employment but becomes paralyzed with anxiety about the interview process, preventing them from preparing or showing up. They might believe that overcoming their anxiety would improve their chances of landing the position. However, Kashimi and Koga would suggest that this actual goal is to avoid the interview entirely, which is why they created feelings of fear. They don't genuinely want the job. Their true objective is to sidestep the possibility of interview failure, and fear serves this purpose perfectly. Kashimi and Koga also tackle the notion that past trauma prevents people from achieving happiness. They challenge this by pointing out that not everyone with traumatic experiences remains trapped by them. While negative childhood events may influence your objectives, they maintain that you still retain the power to decide which goals to pursue and how to live accordingly. In their book, they state that no experience is itself the cause of our success or failure. We don't suffer from the shock of our experiences, the so-called trauma, but instead, we make of them whatever suits our purposes. We aren't determined by our experiences, rather, the meaning we assign to them is self-determining. They further emphasize that, regardless of what has occurred in your life until now, it should have absolutely no bearing on how you live from this point forward. You, living in the present moment, are the one who determines your own life. So if happiness lies within our control, Why would anyone choose unhappiness? Kashimi and Koga argue that unhappiness actually serves as a strategy some people employ to reach their goals. As previously explained, the authors believe our chosen goals shape our emotions. They acknowledge that occasional unhappiness is normal. Everyone experiences disappointment or frustration at times. However, those who are consistently unhappy often have one persistent, frustrating goal. This frustrating goal typically relates to their interactions with others. This represents a crucial insight because Kashimi and Koga suggest your overall happiness depends on the goals you establish for your relationships. In other words, what are you trying to accomplish through your connections with others? The answer to this question fundamentally influences your happiness level. So, your emotions and sense of self are molded by the goals you set, and the goal that most significantly affects your overall happiness is the one you establish for your relationships with others. Kashimi and Koga explain that when interacting with others, people typically pursue one of two primary objectives, either seeking approval from others or aiming to make a positive contribution to their lives. According to Kashimi and Koga, those experiencing unhappiness frequently make external validation their primary objective. These individuals believe genuine joy comes from others perceiving them favorably. This approval might come from educators, family members, or broader society, yet it consistently produces one outcome: discontent. At its core, unhappy people equate being well-liked with personal goodness. Many might contend that craving approval and searching for validation represents a fundamental aspect of human nature. Yet Kashimi and Koga challenge this perspective as misguided. They clarify that people don't pursue approval as a direct path to happiness. Rather, we experience happiness through approval because it fulfills a deeper internal need. What drives people to seek recognition from others? Kashimi and Koga attribute this largely to the effects of education systems built on rewards and punishments. They observe that even when unhappy individuals successfully gain others' approval, this victory carries significant costs. In their quest for validation, these people end up conforming to external expectations. Through this process, they surrender their autonomy and ultimately sacrifice their happiness. As they explain, living your life constantly assessing others' feelings and worrying about their perception of you, living in a way that prioritizes fulfilling others' wishes, may offer some guidance, but it's an extremely restricted existence. Why choose such a constrained way of living? You use the phrase, desire for recognition, but what you actually expressing is an unwillingness to be disliked by anyone. Unless you indifferent to others' judgments, unafraid of their disapproval, and willing to accept the possibility of never receiving recognition, you'll never be able to fully pursue your own path in life. In other words, you cannot achieve freedom. Receiving praise essentially means being judged as good by another person. The standard for determining what qualifies as good or bad comes from that person's value system. If praise is your objective, you'll have no choice but to conform to their standards and restrict your own freedom. They establish how chasing others' approval ultimately leads to dissatisfaction. But this isn't the worst consequence of making it your central goal. Kashimi and Koga argue that the fundamental issue is that this goal often remains unattainable. Typically, approval depends on meeting others' expectations. This means whether people approve of you lies beyond your control. And sometimes, regardless of your efforts, you simply cannot make someone like you. Kashimi and Koga explain that when earning approval becomes impossible, unhappy individuals often respond by establishing a new objective. Rather than continuing to pursue an unattainable goal, they choose to abandon their efforts entirely. They give up on seeking others' approval. When people abandon their efforts to gain approval, they generate negative feelings like fear and self-loathing to rationalize their decision to stop trying. But as Kashimi and Koga point out, these individuals remain under the influence of that unattainable approval goal. By quitting, they don't actually release this desire. They simply strengthen their emotional attachment to it. This intensifies their unhappiness as they continue experiencing the pain of failing to achieve something they essentially abandoned. Their second adopted goal becomes convincing themselves they possess some inherent flaw, making it impossible for others to appreciate them. By clinging to this restrictive belief, unhappy individuals avoid the risk of not securing others' approval, since they can easily explain it away by claiming they are fundamentally flawed or defective. However, this traps them in a cycle of hopelessness and misery, as they now believe they lack the ability to change whatever they perceive as their defect. Furthermore, Kashimi and Koga demonstrate that the craving for external validation doesn't only damage self-worth. It also obstructs the development of healthy connections with others. The primary reason is that unhappy people frequently view life as a contest, seeing others as competitors. From their perspective, someone else's success equals their failure. This occurs because approval typically comes with conditions. It depends on specific behaviors. Some might appreciate you for your humor, others for your generosity, and certain people for your professional accomplishment. These standards are challenging to meet, and no one excels in all areas. Naturally, someone else might earn approval more effectively than you. When others succeed, they elevate expectations, making it more difficult for you to receive similar recognition. Kashimi and Koga describe seeking external validation as a zero-sum situation. The more another person succeeds, the worse you appear by comparison. Essentially, pursuing others' approval transforms life into a competition with clear winners and losers. This leads unhappy individuals to dread others' success and may even cause them to secretly celebrate others' failures rather than offering support. This behavior ultimately prevents the formation of healthy relationships. Kashimi and Koga clarify that once one breaks free from the competitive mindset, the need to triumph over others vanishes. The second reason approval seeking damages relationships is because unhappy people believe relationships are built on sacrifice. An unhappy person's need for validation can further harm their connections by creating a sense of entitlement. Kashimi and Koga argue that because unhappy individuals dedicate their lives to meeting others' expectations, they grow resentful when others, particularly those closest to them, fail to meet their expectations in return. The authors explain that an unhappy person feels wronged when they perform a kind act for someone and don't receive the gratitude or appreciation they anticipated. Consider this situation. Someone organizes a surprise birthday celebration for their friend, then feels hurt when the friend doesn't return the gesture. In this scenario, the party organizer is actually using the friendship as a transaction to receive something back. If the friend feels pressured to do something similar but doesn't want to, tension and resentment begin to form. Now that they examined how chasing external validation can harm your well-being and connections with others, let us explore the alternative path that Kashimi and Koga recommend for a more fulfilling life. Kashimi and Koga propose that instead of pursuing approval, content individuals concentrate on supporting others. Their genuine joy comes from contributing to the well-being of people around them. For these individuals, happiness emerges from the sincere belief that they provide value to someone else's life. This shift from seeking approval to making contributions represents a fundamental change in your relationship with the world. It transforms your interactions from, "What can I get?" to, "What can I give?" This simple reorientation can dramatically alter how you experience daily life, turning ordinary encounters into opportunities for meaning and connection rather than chances for validation or rejection. Kashimi and Koga maintain that as long as happy people believe they are helping others, they remain unconcerned about others' opinions of them. They emphasize that you need to determine for yourself what being valuable means. Once you identify what truly matters in your life, everything else will seem unimportant. Even if you satisfy others' expectations but don't feel you are making a difference, happiness will remain elusive. They elaborate. When one truly experiences a sense of contribution, the need for recognition from others disappears, because one already possesses the authentic awareness that I matter to someone without having to seek acknowledgement from others. In other words, a person fixated on recognition hasn't yet developed community feeling and hasn't succeeded in embracing self-acceptance, trust in others, or meaningful contribution to others. For content individuals, assisting others isn't a selfless act of sacrifice. It's something they do primarily for their own fulfillment. While this might appear selfish, Kashimi and Koga contend that it is perfectly acceptable if your life's purpose is your own happiness. Since helping others brings them satisfaction, happy people can give without anticipating anything in return. This perspective flips traditional thinking about altruism on its head. Rather than viewing helping others as something you do at your own expense, it becomes something you do for your own joy. When you help others because it genuinely makes you happy, you create a sustainable approach to contribution that doesn't lead to burnout or resentment. Furthermore, according to the authors, The desire to help because it brings you joy serves as a much stronger motivator than doing so merely because it is considered right. This is because pursuing self-sacrifice to be perceived as virtuous is simply another form of seeking validation. Kashimi and Koga also contend that anyone can discover happiness by understanding that their mere existence brings joy to others. Humans naturally care for one another, and simply being present with others can be fulfilling without needing to accomplish anything extraordinary. This insight offers profound relief for those who feel they must constantly prove their worth through achievements or special talents. The truth is that your presence matters to people in ways you might not even recognize. A smile, a listening ear, or just being there during difficult times can mean more than grand gestures or impressive accomplishments. Building on this concept, happy people believe that all humans possess inherent value even without notable accomplishments. Because of this perspective, they can fully accept themselves. Even with mistakes or imperfections compared to others, they recognize that their presence holds value for those around them. This helps them maintain positive self-regard despite their flaws. While Kashimi and Koga recognize that some individuals contribute more good than others, they highlight that unlike unhappy people who might view others' success as threatening, happy people celebrate it. Since happy people believe everyone can bring joy to others simply by existing, they see no reason to treat life as a competition. Others' achievements cannot diminish their fundamental worth as human beings. This non-competitive worldview creates space for genuine admiration and appreciation of others' talents and successes. When you are not measuring yourself against everyone else, you can enjoy their gifts without feeling threatened or diminished by them. This shift allows for more authentic connections and celebrations of each person's unique contributions. Finally, happy people center themselves in the present moment, appreciating life as it unfolds. Kashimi and Koga believe we all possess the ability to choose happiness at any given time. Kashimi and Koga explain that many believe they must achieve something significant to find happiness. But this isn't true. Anyone can find fulfillment by simply recognizing the positive influence they have on others. They clarify that this doesn't mean abandoning future goals. Rather, you should find meaning and pleasure in the journey toward those objectives. This way, if life ended unexpectedly, you wouldn't feel it was wasted. This focus on the present journey rather than distant destinations allows you to experience fulfillment daily, not just at major milestones. By appreciating the process of working toward goals, you transform ordinary days into meaningful parts of your life story rather than mere stepping stones to some future happiness. The essential lesson from this book is that regardless of your actions, some people inevitably want to like you. Therefore, the only path to lasting happiness is accepting this reality and having the courage to live authentically according to your values, regardless of others' opinions. This is why releasing the need for approval and developing the courage to be disliked is crucial. When you finally embrace this truth, that universal approval is impossible and unnecessary, you gain a profound freedom. You can redirect all the energy once spent worrying about opinions and judgments toward creating a life aligned with your deepest values and making meaningful contributions. This courage to be disliked doesn't mean becoming inconsiderate or callous. Rather, it means choosing authenticity over popularity, substance over appearance, and personal integrity over external validation. What is one area in your life where you are still seeking others' approval? Share below and let's start a conversation about breaking free. If you found this video useful, please like it and subscribe to the channel. There are more videos on this channel that will help you become a better version of yourself.